I work as the managing director at the Home Ownership Center here at Neighborhood Housing Services. I'm going to start by kind of giving you an overview of why hopefully you're here today. One of the reasons why I like to have the clinic before we actually meet with you one-on-one is because then I think it gives us a chance to kind of understand who Neighborhood Housing Services is, what our history has been in the community, and exactly how we can work together with you and the lender in this whole process. Time on their mortgages, they're not late yet, but maybe they have a high adjustable income to see us, might be foreclosure process just completed. Well, we don't have our complete certificate of occupancy yet, so I couldn't put you into the big. I work as the managing director for the Home Ownership Center here at Neighborhood Housing Services. The reason why you're in the clinic tonight and what I want you to walk away with before you actually meet with your counselor one-on-one so that they can address your specific issue is I want you, when you walk away today, I want you to have a clear understanding of Neighborhood Housing Services, what we do, how we can work together with you in this particular process, because I think the first question a lot of people ask me is, exactly what do you do and what can you do for me? So we want to answer that question. Second of all, I want to talk about the different options that are available out there for people who need mortgage help, so we say distressed borrowers. And the other thing that I want to review with you are the different state and federal programs that are available that work in conjunction with the different options I'm going to talk about that can help you. So hopefully, when you walk away tonight, you'll have a very good idea of who Neighborhood Housing Services is, how we work together with you in the process, what some of the options are, and from listening to what I say, maybe you're thinking, oh yeah, so that when you sit down with your counselor, you'll probably have a good idea of what they'll be working on with you. So let me give you about Neighborhood Housing Services. We have been in the community for 29 years. Next year we'll celebrate our 30th anniversary. So we've been doing the type of work I'm going to talk to you about for a while now. We started strictly doing affordable housing, developing and rehabbing. So that's helping people. The program kind of matches you dollar for dollar. And a lot of times homeowners say there are programs out there that help people get into homes, like down payment and closing cost assistance. But suppose I'm in the house and I want to do some energy conservation repairs, like I want to replace my furnace. So we have a program that will match you dollar for dollar up to $5,000. So once you save $5, you're matched with $5, and then you can use that money to do repairs within your home. I also, for people who are successful in that program, offer a low 3% $5,000 loan for people who want to do different repairs on their home. Financial literacy is big because a lot of people have major impact on your credit. So I'm always, okay, I'll do my little cell phone announcement. Oh, cell phones. And a lot of people that we're trying to get them to participate in our financial literacy classes where we talk about, managing your debt, how to budget in stressful times, which is going to be very important. A lot of you found that everybody who's in here now would have already completed an application packet. And part of your application packet, remember everybody that there was that little income and expense form? That's options that are available. Your options, a lot of the times, are going to be determined by that income expense analysis. And I'll kind of talk a little bit more about that a little bit later on. But anyway, Neighborhood Housing Services also does a lot with foreclosure intervention counseling. And so that's because, of course, we've had our mortgage meltdown that everyone knows about. And so really to talk about the different programs, once again, like I said, that are available to work with you, work with your lender to see what programs that you can qualify for. So that's what Neighborhood Housing Services has been all about and is all about in the community. If you look at your packet, because I'm going to follow this pretty closely, on the cover it talks about the coming foreclosure. And that was an initiative that was developed by the City of New Haven, the Mayor's Office. It has the Greater Community Loan Foundation as a part of it, the Yale Law Clinic as a part of it. We are a part of it, and we do a lot of the foreclosure intervention counseling. And it was really a concerted effort kind of a two-pronged effort, I'd like to say. Number one, there is outreach. And the big problem at the very beginning of this particular problem was that a lot of people just did not know what their options were, did not know where to go. And unfortunately, there were a lot of scam companies that were around. And people would get a lot of literature in the mail, come to see me, I can help you save your house, with a cost of $2,000 or $3,000. And that was happening. And so it was really so that agency providers could come together to get the information about the legitimate providers that are out there. So I always like to tell people, the Banking Commission, the Attorney General's Office, we're a HUD-approved nonprofit agency. And any HUD-approved nonprofit agency is not going to charge you a fee for services. Nonprofit counseling agencies that specifically work with foreclosure intervention throughout the state of Connecticut. So for legal assistance, one of the numbers we have down here is a number for Connecticut Fair Housing Center. I said we work very closely with the Yale Law Clinic. We also work very closely with the Connecticut Fair Housing Center with their foreclosure intervention lawyers. So one of the things they've set up in our office, which I've found to work very well, is sometimes you want legal advice, but you don't have a significant amount of money so that you can go out and hire your own attorney. But you just need some advice in terms of your approach about things. And so usually every other Friday I'll get an attorney who will come from Attorney Ann Parent type appointments with different clients. So that's something that's very good. The state mortgage assistance product, I'm going to talk to you more in detail about a little bit later on, but that's a training program. And this is something I'm also going to talk to you a little bit about that started in July through Workforce Alliance, but they have specific scholarships that if people can qualify for retraining. And so this might be someone who's lost their job, or maybe they're underemployed at this particular moment. Talk to you about are the options. And I think that's what everybody wants to know. That we're probably doing right now is the option called the modification. How many people are familiar with a loan modification? Or just show of hands, how many people have heard of a modification? Okay, modification, think of it very simply like this. It's when you're going to modify or change, alter, some original term or condition of the mortgage loan. So it could be the interest rate. Maybe right now you're in an adjustable rate mortgage, you're in at 11% interest rate, and we're trying to talk the lender into bringing the rate down to 5 1/4 or 6%. Or 6 1/4, or 6 3/4. We're trying to get them to lock it there. So a modification of interest rate. It could be a modification, and as I say this, a lot of times when we're working with clients, these are combined. I'm trying to get the interest rate lower, and then suppose a client is like 2 or 3 months behind in their mortgage. And we're trying to get them to take whatever their arrearage is, whatever they're behind, and put it on the back end of the mortgage. So we're trying to get them to modify the interest rate, modify the term of the loan. In some cases, and this is probably most hard to do, we're trying to reduce maybe the principal balance or reduce what they owe. I'm saying we've had the greatest success in modification with reducing interest rates and also taking the arrearage, and that's what you might owe if you're 2 or 3 months behind, and getting that put in on the back end of the loan. So the good thing about modification, let me tell you, when I think about 7 or 8 months ago, when I was doing modifications, it was almost like pulling teeth. A lot of lenders did not want to modify the existing terms of the mortgages, but we still were able to get them done, but they weren't happening in the numbers that they're happening now. And to me, that's a very good thing. I would say the downside, though, that I have to warn people with the modifications, it's not an overnight process. It still takes what I would consider entirely too long. I mean, sometimes it's 90 days. It's an average of 60 to 90 days once they've gotten all your material in that they're looking for, all the paperwork that they're looking for from you, sometimes before they let me know what the modification is. Now, one of the reasons that causes that is because They're inundated. I mean, there are so many files that they're working on. But some good news with that, I don't know if anyone here actually has a lender servicer or has their loan with Chase Manhattan, but JP Morgan Chase, and I think this was the week before last, they said what they're going to do to kind of address the need to get modifications done on a faster basis is that they were going to open 24 more centers nationwide, and that they were going to hire 300 loan counselors to really work very closely with the housing counselors and trying to get the loans modified. So my hope is a lot of times when the bigger ones do this, then the others will start falling in line. So that's a very positive thing. But modification is probably the #1 thing that we're working on with individuals. Now, there's something very important to remember about this. Remember I told you the income and expense analysis is very important to us. And the reason why I say it's very important is because if I do your income and expense analysis and I can determine that, wow, if you just had a lower interest rate, this would be affordable for you, then that's something that to me is a little easier to sell to the lender. However, if we do your income and expense analysis, and even if I were to lower the interest rate to say 2% or 3% or 4%, and it still looks like you can't afford it, then that's when you really have to seriously take a look at some of the other options. And another option potential for a lot of clients is sometimes sale of the home. Now, I know you guys all know that the real estate market has drastically changed, right? And that a lot of times what you might have purchased the house for, or maybe what your house would have appraised for a year ago, it does not appraise for that right now. So a lot of times people are finding that they're what we call upside down in their properties. Cases where a modification is really not going to work for that individual, sometimes the best thing to do is to sell the property. And then we'll work with you in terms of doing what we call, and this option is on here too, a pre-foreclosure or a short sale. Sometimes people call it pre-foreclosure sales, sometimes it's called a short sale. They're really the same thing in that you negotiate with your lender to accept less than what you owe on a property and then kind of let you free and clear off of that property. So that's another option, that's another viable option that more and more people are actually doing. Refinance. Yes.
Going back to the option of selling your home.
Along with the other houses that are out there on the market. And you're right, it's a difficult market right now, because that's where I say you really need to work with someone who's going to aggressively list your house so that you will get some bites on it. And yes, what we're trying to do is we're trying to work with the lenders to get extensions on time so that if you can't sell your house, if they foreclose upon it, then they're going to run into those same issues and problems, and it ultimately is going to cost them more money at the end. So if they have someone who's living in the property who's going to try and aggressively market it, it makes more sense to give that person the time that they need to try and get that home sold. Does that make sense?
Or, yeah, makes sense.
Yes, okay. Now I want to talk about refinance. Nick's talking about state and federal programs with the refinance option. And everything that I'm talking to you about is in here. Short blurbs on one of the programs I'm going to talk to you about. How many people have heard of the federal program, Help for Homeowners, H4H? And this is the one that is a part of the bill that was passed this past summer. It was Bill 3321. This is the one that Senator Dodd really spearheaded. This is a refinance product that if you can get the lender to agree to it, they do what's called a 10% reduction off of your principal. Remember we talked about the fact that the real estate market has changed. A lot of people are upside down in their mortgages. And so we could and some people are having trouble refinancing because they can't get the house to appraise down. 10%, the lender has agreed to take 10% off of whatever your loan balance is and get it refinanced. This is a brand new program. This actually, the information about this program, and there's a little fact sheet in your little packet for you on this program. Just, what is this? This is November. It just came out like maybe mid-October when we started getting a lot of information on it. So I have a feeling the only lender I know right now that's taking applications for the help for homeowners is Countrywide. They're trying to get more lenders to get aboard to participate with this particular program, but I hope once we have a number of lenders aboard with this particular program that this might be a real option for some of you out here. So that's the Help for Homeowners, or Hope for Homeowners, H4H. There's another refinance program. How many people are familiar with Connecticut Families? Connecticut Families is our own state program. The other one is a federal program. How many people are familiar with the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority, CHAFA? Okay, CHAFA does, a lot of the first-time home buying products, first-time home buying loans. Well, they have a product that's someone who's in an adjustable interest rate out of that adjustable and put them into a fixed rate. The fixed rate is always going to mirror what the CHAFA rate is right now, and I think, can't remember, but I really think the CHAFA rate right now is somewhere around 5.875 for a 30-year fixed mortgage. So there's some people who might be able to qualify for Connecticut Families. There's also another federal program called FHA Secure. And FHA Secure is another refinance program to try and get you out of the adjustable interest rate and put you into a fixed interest rate. And once again, it's going to be around the prevailing rate, and I think for that program, it's probably somewhere around 6.1 something. Okay, so those are other viable options. I don't know if you are familiar with reverse mortgages or home equity conversion mortgages. This is only going to work if you're age 62 or older. And that's where they're going to look at your home, and actually the home gets paid off. And this has been an option that has worked for some of our seniors. And as I said, these options will be more in-depthly explored when you're sitting down with your counselor one-on-one. But these are some of the options that we see people being able to do. Deed in lieu of foreclosure is here too, because that means, suppose someone has in earnest been trying in earnest, they've been really trying to sell their house, but they cannot sell their foreclosure, not wholly liable for any deficiency judgment, meaning that if they ended up selling the property and they didn't get enough to clear your mortgage, that they're not going to come after you at a later point in time. So sometimes that is another option that some people actually end up using. Some of the other options on here, and this is why everything is going to be a case-by-case basis, for people who might find that they have a government mortgage, that's something important to tell your counselor when you sit down with them, because there are different options that are available for people who are in government mortgages that are not available in some of the conventional products. Do we have any questions about options? And actually understand that I'm going to give you a cursory review, but that when you're sitting down with your loan counselor, when you sit down with the housing counselor, they're going to go through in detail exactly how the options work. Okay?
Rachel, I mean, at this point, but just curiously, I mean, is that what it is?
Does it? Yeah, it's almost, I guess you could give the analogy between if someone had a car and there's an involuntary or voluntary repossession, involuntary where they come and get the car, voluntary is when you turn the keys back. And you could kind of compare it to that. Does it affect your credit? Yes, it will affect your credit because it will say that you did a deed in lieu of foreclosure. Can you come back from that? Yes, you can come back from that. I mean, you can rebuild your credit, and there's going to be a waiting period of in between 3 to 5 years, really depending on the type of program you get into, and you can actually purchase a home again. But a deed in lieu sometimes is a position where I can't get it modified. So, you know, it's one step better than just having a bank take it back by foreclosure, but to say, okay, I'm gonna negotiate with the bank to do a deed in lieu of foreclosure. I'm gonna make sure that they don't do any sort of deficiency judgment. And that's very important to me, because a deficiency judgment is where if they sell the property and it sells for less than what you owe on it, that potentially in the future, someone could come back to you and say, you owe X amount of thousands of dollars.